This is the Chi Codes Podcast with your host, Thomas Dockstader.
So Jared, hey man, great to have you on.
Glad to be here.
Awesome. So excited. So you're another in the group of people that have been helping me out with the men's group that I joined. We Are the They. And again, another scenario where we've just now met.
Yep.
as you've shown up here. But I love it because I think that they've been really good. I've done two other folks that have come on, Jeffrey Mann and
I just was with Jeff over the weekend. He came down with me to St. George.
Perfect. Yeah. So we had a really great conversation, and that one just got out today. But, the purpose is really just to share stories and of resilience and, trying to inspire people to pull through and find some light if they're in a dark space. And so my understanding is that you've got some stories for me.
I do. I've got some great stories.
Awesome.
I grew up with a father that was raised by he was a preacher's kid. My grandfather first was Baptist, and my dad's mom passed away when my dad was 11. 2 weeks later, my grandfather moved his new woman and her children into their home. And so he had this previous life or had this other life going on while my dad's mom was dying of cancer. And at 15, my dad dropped out of high school. He basically raised himself. So I'm raised by a father that took custody of us 4 kids because my own mother struggled with alcoholism, drug addiction, and they joined the LDS church to try and save their marriage. That doesn't cut it. It may have worked for somebody out there. It didn't work for her.
Okay.
So raised by a single dad who raised himself on the streets and was the road manager of a band back in the 70s. And so he was living a pretty wild life. Mm-hmm. And he didn't know how to, be a father. I mean, who does?
Right.
But, he really didn't know how to be a father. My grandfather was raised in a boys' home. So there's been this history of, kind of raising themselves, figuring it out. And my dad stuck around. So that I'm grateful. Excuse me. That I'm grateful for. I'm grateful that my dad decided to take on 4 kids because back in the late 80s, that wasn't done. Mm-hmm, sure. But he didn't know what he was doing. And so with all of this came trials, tribulations, him figuring it out, and an endless series of wives coming in and out of our lives, and a big mess of kids that came along with that. So, there's 4 of us biological, and then I have 4 younger step siblings or step brothers and a younger stepsister. And, navigating, growing up had its own, challenges. Mm-hmm. And, I ended up serving an LDS mission. I came home from my mission and was lost.
So I'm just curious, when you were growing up, pre-mission, mm-hmm, did you get in trouble?
Yeah, I had, my family called it, there was 2 Jareds.
Okay.
There was, my mischievous Jared, and then there was the good Jared that was helpful, always wanted to be there for everybody, was reliable. But I had this, kind of darker side that I hid from everyone, and I was pretty good at it for a while.
Okay. Why do you think that is? Why do you think you had 2 sides? Did you see that? Did you see that you had 2 sides?
Kind of, because I also kind of kept 2 separate groups of friends. Even I had my party friends, and then I had the good kids.
Okay.
And that gave me an ability to, hide what I was doing. So I messed around with, drinking, smoking pot, smoking cigarettes, things like that, on and off. And then turned 19 and announced to the family that I wasn't serving a mission. And my family had this tradition on certain holidays, your birthday, big events where you got this red plate. And the red plate said, "You are special today because." Okay. And then everybody would go around the table and tell why you were special to them. And my stepbrother Dane said on my 19th birthday that the reason I was special to him was because I was willing to stand up to the family and not serve a mission. Okay. And it broke my heart.
Oh, wow.
It broke my heart. Like, what kind of example am I setting that I would be, that person, that's why I'm special to him, is because I'm willing to stand up and tell the man no. So anyway, I went through kind of a figuring out period for the next, 6 or 8 months. And then kind of out of nowhere, felt this impression that I needed to serve a mission. Now, I'm not LDS anymore, but it was exactly what I needed at the right time.
Okay.
Doing that was very beneficial for me in my life.
So you could say it was intuition to some degree, just like something hit you and you're like, I got to do this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd say a part of it was also feeling like I was sitting in a hot tub with some friends of mine, and each one of them said that day that they were going to serve a mission. And I was like, wait a second, none of us were going on missions. Like, what happened? And I felt like I've lost all my friends, so I may as well go. Okay. So it was more of my friend group was what kind of pushed me into it, because I didn't want to be the only one not going.
Interesting. Do you talk to me a little bit about the process of getting ready to go on the mission, going through the temple, all those things? How did you feel about that? Like, from the time that you, I mean, I have a story of my own, but anyway, so when you when you got through the temple and you're like, "Hey, I'm going," did you feel like, "Hey, I'm into this," or like, I
was so excited to go that I didn't do a lot of thinking about it.
Where'd you go, by the way?
Oklahoma.
Okay.
Super exotic.
Yeah.
Flat. When I opened my mission call, I had friends that were going to Paraguay, one to Panama, one to Russia, Argentina, Chile, Brazil, all these amazing places. And I opened my call and I got Oklahoma. And I'm originally from Texas. So this was like...
next door neighbor.
Yeah. Wait a second. No, something's wrong here. I'm not supposed to go to Oklahoma. But I went where I was supposed to. And I had a great mission, but it didn't... when I got on my mission, that's when I struggled to really think that I was doing the right thing. Okay. I was so gung-ho. Once I made the decision, it was just like boots on the ground, and I just one foot in front of the other until I was gone. And then when I was out there, I was like, I don't think I'm supposed to be here. Like, I don't know if I believe this. So I struggled for a little while, and then I got a mission companion who was all about service, and that was his mission. In his mind was, I'm just here to love people and to serve them. Mm-hmm. And that changed the whole trajectory of the rest of my mission. It was no longer, I'm here to convert these poor souls to the Mormon church in Oklahoma. It was, I'm here to serve and love other people. Mm-hmm. And that has served me very well throughout my life.
Interesting.
Another reason why I'm sitting here in this chair today is I kind of live my life that way, that I get to be an individual who is able to just love and serve and give back to others who struggle as I once struggled.
Wow. So, does that individual know that he impacted you that way?
I don't think he does.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. All right. So you get home from your mission and you say you were lost.
Yep. Came home and I moved into a house with a couple other return missionaries. I was going to church. I was doing all the things that I thought I was supposed to, but I was just lost in the mix in the sea of all these other same single adults in the LDS church. They have singles wards. And so when someone is single, they go to one of these specific wards, and there were hundreds of single individuals, and it's designed to help people find their spouses.
Right.
But I was just lost in the sea of people.
Yeah.
And anyway, one of my roommates was very open about his drinking, and so he drank in the house. And one day I decided that I wanted to drink with him, and I was like, "Don't tell Bennett, our other roommate." And he was like, this happened a few times, and finally he was like, "Oh my gosh, you guys are so dumb. You're both drinking with me separately and telling me not to tell the other one."
So you were all.
So then it was out.
Oh boy.
We all started drinking and partying together, and that's where things kicked off. We were the party house, and college kids going to school, figuring out life, and we just started hitting the alcohol hard.
Yeah. And so I mean, hey, I mean, I guess school alcohol across the nation, I would say that's pretty synonymous.
Pretty standard.
Probably where you do most of your drinking typically
Yeah.
for the average person is in college.
And one thing I noticed is, those guys, they never struggled with the addiction portion of it. And that's where we were different. Is it started to become a problem for me. Nobody said anything.
Even at that age, early 20s.
Early 20s is when I started, going hard, but it probably wasn't until my late 20s when it was an actual problem.
Right. Did you recognize it as a problem then? Because that's a big thing, right?
No, I didn't realize that it was a problem until I tried taking my life 10 years ago.
Okay.
In 2014. So I was 30 years old. It was July 7th of 2014. And I had, several months before, I was in a relationship. We were living together, engaged, and that came crashing down. And then I spiraled quick. And I knew I had a problem, but I was too embarrassed, too ashamed to reach out and ask for help.
Isn't that interesting? I mean, for myself also struggling, it was one of the biggest things of just like, first one, admitting you have a problem to yourself is a huge wall to overcome. Because for me, and you can tell me if you did this, but I played the compare game. Because I had, siblings and stuff that were in prison and stuff like that. And so I was like, oh, I'm not as bad as them. I hold a job. So even though I'm drinking like crazy, the rationalization in my head was I wasn't as bad and I didn't have a problem because my life wasn't completely falling apart.
100%.
Yeah.
I have an older brother who had gotten addicted to meth, had done his stints in jail, homeless, living out of, the road home downtown Salt Lake, on the verge of losing his kids to DCFS. So I absolutely compared the compare game, or played the compare game with my older brother, and then with other people that I saw that, really struggled. Like, well, they've got a problem.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. I did that for years.
Okay.
He was the black sheep and I was the good kid. I was the good son. And because at the time I was still pretty good at hiding that I was struggling.
Right. So did you, so do you feel like you were hiding that, the amount and stuff when even up to maybe the suicide attempt? Because see, one thing I talk about in the book is I say that when you're truly suicidal, it's the loneliest place because you can't tell anyone, right? And you won't tell anyone, right? Because you don't want to get stopped, And 2, you don't want to be branded as crazy or, whatever. And so it's like this really lonely place to be.
Yeah, I was at just a super dark place. And I don't really know when my family figured out that I was really struggling. I don't know when my friends knew I was struggling because I was pretty good at putting on a face. And I would still show up to things. I'd still go out with friends. I wasn't a recluse that just drank alone in my house. I was still out and about.
And you were conscious of the visual.
Yeah.
Right? Like how people were viewing you.
Oh, yes. Posting all, the positive things on Facebook and making it look like my life was grand and glorious when I was just in turmoil inside.
Those are always the scariest kind, right? I was the same way.
Yep.
Really, I was. I got so bad with the lying to myself. I lived alone and I was hiding liquor in my own house. It makes zero sense.
Yeah.
Who am I hiding it from?
I still know where that's at.
Yeah.
I don't know that I had admitted that I had a problem until I had just was at the absolute end of my rope. And I burned everything to the ground pretty much. I stopped showing up to work. So then I was fired. I'm living at a friend's house who is, letting me live there rent free while I'm trying to figure this out. And then I am now, in debt up to my eyeballs and had, just gotten to this deep, dark place, but nobody knew it. Mm-hmm. And so it was July 7th of 2014, and I posted a suicide note on Facebook and then shut off my phone and drove up into the mountains of Park City towards East Canyon behind Jeremy Ranch Golf Course. There's a dirt road back there, and I went deep back there, found a secluded spot in the middle of nowhere, and beautiful place. And I've actually done some interesting like EMDR, and they tell you to find, your safe place.
Yep.
This safe place for me is now this spot, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So I laid out a blanket. It's the middle of summer, so it's hotter than heck outside. And I looked up at the sky and said out loud, God, if you exist and you want me here, prove it. And then I grabbed this knife and started slicing up my arms. And I laid down and passed out. And then I woke up, realized I was still alive, and said out loud again, mother effer, I'm still alive. And then I grabbed the knife and started cutting up my arm some more. Oh my gosh. And then laid down and passed out. Next thing I know, I'm hearing this horn honk, beep, beep, beep. And then these voices start, I'm hearing these voices. And they start questioning, like, who's down there? Who's down there? I was like, I am. Like, come out with your hands up. I was like, I can't. Like, why? I said, I cut myself. Why did you do that? Anyway, one guy comes from this direction. Another guy comes from another direction. And they realize I'm in dire need of help, and take off my belt, my shoelaces, start tying tourniquets. These guys had been river rafting in this area and then had stopped off just to pee. And their wife, and then they were just dinking around by the water. And so to get their attention, she starts honking their horn.
Oh my gosh.
And in my stupor, apparently I said help. And I don't recall saying help, but that's what they said. And one of them was an Army Ranger, and he had a couple of special trainings within being an Army Ranger. One of those being battle wound care, and the other was tactical driver training. So they grabbed a river raft, loaded me on this river raft, and drug me up this hill, loaded me in the back of my own car, and drove 120 miles an hour down this awful rutted dirt road that I drove like 15 miles an hour down to get to this spot. and saved my life.
Wow.
Later that night, my Facebook post had alerted everyone that I was in trouble, and hundreds of people had been out searching for me. And they were able to get in touch with dispatch finally, and just when they thought all hope was lost, and figure out that I was being transported from Park City to University of Utah Hospital, where I was going into surgery to sew up my arms. And while my family was there in the waiting room, there were two couples that were sitting in there talking, and my brother-in-law overhears them. And he's like, "Did you guys just save somebody in Park City?" They're like, "Yeah." And these guys live in Park City, and decided after saving me that they were going to go to Salt Lake and have dinner. While at dinner, they're like, "This guy just bled all over us, and we don't know if he has any diseases or anything. We better go get our blood checked." Right. So where did they end up but the same waiting room that my entire family's sitting in, waiting for me to come out of surgery.
Oh my gosh.
And then so they're able to meet my family and discuss the events of that day. And one of them was wearing a shirt with Muhammad Ali on it, where he's standing over Sonny Liston, where Sonny Liston fell down in the first round and wouldn't get up and fight him. And Muhammad Ali was yelling at him, "Get up and fight, fight me." And that picture was in my room, and I had it for years. And that was kind of my motto at the time, was get up and fight, just get up and fight. And so there was just so many of these amazing, I just call them God moments, where these exact right people were in the right place at the right time to save my life. Then end up in the same waiting room as my family, wearing this Muhammad Ali shirt, get up and fight. So anyway, after that, I went to treatment, and I stayed sober for about 1.5 years. And then got to a place where I was like, "Oh, I'm not an alcoholic." I was just in a bad relationship. So
would you say that when you quit drinking, then for obvious reasons, right? You got to a rock bottom point. You went to rehab and basically got off alcohol, more or less.
Yeah. And life got good. Life got good. And, I had done a lot of work and got to a place where, life got good again.
But it sounds like even at that, you didn't accept that you knew you had a problem, but you didn't accept that you had a problem.
I did for a while.
Okay.
And then
you thought the problem was gone.
Then I thought the problem was gone.
Okay.
Then I'm like, oh, wait a second. No, I didn't have a problem with alcohol. I had a problem with relationships. And as long as I make sure that I'm don't get into that dark place with a relationship, then my life's going to be great.
So it was an external problem.
It was an external problem.
You thought it was an external problem.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And not realizing that it was absolutely internal. The mind games that we play with ourselves is pretty interesting. So, started drinking again, drank for, I don't know, another 1.5 years, maybe. And life got hard again.
Progressively.
Yes. Life got hard. And instead of, figuring out that I needed to reach out and ask for help, again, I was too prideful. And so I thought the solution was to take my life. And I was working with an alarm company. I was down in Miami, and our manager had rented a house in Miami for us. And so we were all just living in this house, and it was a party house for sure.
Of course. Yep.
And I went along right with it.
Yep.
And anyway, again, got to this dark place where, financially I had gotten myself into a terrible spot, and a lot of my worth I placed around finances, and not having that. It was like, what am I? If I don't have money, then, what do I have?
I think that's a really important thing to capitalize on. So, oftentimes our value is based on our either accomplishment or like something external, right?
100%.
So, whatever, money, a car. I'll tell you, one of the worst days of my life was when I bought a Porsche. The reason it was the worst day of my life is because for so long I was like, when I have money, then I will be happy.
Yep.
And when I parked that thing in my garage, I was like, what the hell? I have some money and I'm not happy at all. And that made me go downhill even faster because I was tricked into this idea that when you get this thing, then everything will be a certain way.
Yeah. If I'm, dating this hot girl, then I'll be happy. If I have and make this amount of money, I'll be happy. If I have this house or if I have this, Porsche, whatever it is, I think a lot of us play that game for a while, until we figure out, happiness doesn't come from items, from how hot my girlfriend is. Those things don't make us happy.
Unfortunately, for some people, it takes a lot to get out of that. A lot.
That's very true. So here I am in Miami again at the end of my rope, and still haven't figured out the ability to reach out and tell someone that I'm in trouble and I need you. So I just shut off my phone and drove to Key West, knowing full well I'm going to die. And stop along the way at a 7-Eleven and had one of their commercial vacuums outside, and I grabbed the hose and ripped it out of that deal, and threw it in the back seat and continued driving on to Key West, and went down to Key West and had no money, none, knowing that my credit card's going to get denied. And I went to a very nice, very expensive dinner, knowing I can't pay for it. And I had a beautiful Audi at the time, and I put this key on the table so that they could see that I drove a nice car, and that they just let me walk and with a promise to pay. And they did. The owner actually of this restaurant came out when my credit card's denied, and I'm like, I'm traveling. Anyway, he was very gracious and was like, hey, just, call in and pay it when you can. Let me go. And then I found a secluded spot, and put one end of that hose in my tailpipe and the other in the window, laid my seat back, and started to pass out. And then the car shut off. This is a brand new Audi. Like, no way. Press the start button and lay back down. Feel like I'm starting to pass out again. Car shuts off. And I'm getting ticked off at this time. And this happens 5 or 6 times and at this point I was really drunk, but I was so frustrated and mad after 5 or 6 times. So apparently Audi's got something built in where you can't die in their vehicles.
Oh, wow.
So
little did you know.
Little did I know. That or God really said, you're not ready to go, and kept shutting off this car. Anyway, I got out, ripped the hose out, threw it, and got back in the car, laid down, and fell asleep. And then I stayed drunk on the beach, just hanging out with other homeless people, and meeting random individuals down there that were out for a good time, drinking their beer, and stayed drunk for a few weeks on the beach, just wishing I could just drink myself to death.
Wow.
And then I met a Marine who was down there. And he and I started hanging out for a couple of days, and I opened up to him, telling him my story. He's like, "What are you doing? Like, you're way too good of a guy to be out here, like living with these homeless people, living this life. Like, your family's got to be worried sick. And like, call them." Like, nope. And he's like, "Please just call them. Let me call them and just let them know you're okay." Mm-hmm. Nope. And anyway, a couple more days go by, us hanging out. And one night, it was like the last night he was going to be there. And he broke down crying, and he's a big dude. Mm-hmm. And he's like, "Jared, you know I don't cry. Like, please call someone." And so I said, "Okay, I'll call one person." And I reached out to my friend JD Gibson, and he was like, "Where are you? Your family, everyone is worried sick. Like, where are you?" I said, "I'm in Key West." "Where's the nearest airport?" I said, "Well, there's a Key West airport a mile from me." And he's like, "Get to it. I'm buying you a ticket, and I'll pick you up from the airport." So he picks me up from the airport, and he drives me straight to treatment. And at this time, I had no money, no way to pay for treatment. So he and his wonderful wife at the time, Jody, they personally paid for me to go to treatment.
Wow.
And I, again, stayed sober for about a year and a half. And during that year and a half, I had gotten married, and 2 months into my marriage, found out my wife was talking to an ex-boyfriend. And from past experiences being cheated on, I knew what that would do. And so I packed my bags and I walked upstairs and I said, "I'm not going to be with a cheater." And I left. And then started drinking that night. Went on a bender for a few months until once again, I thought the right thing to do would be to take my life. And laid in my bathtub and grabbed a knife and cut my arm.
Dude, I'm so glad you didn't have a gun any of these times, because you would have succeeded with the gun.
It's unbelievable. So I got to a point, the blood actually started to clot. I had no energy left, nothing in me. But I had my phone sitting there playing music. And so I called 911 on myself.
Oh, wow.
And then ended up back in treatment again. So went to treatment, and this time, like, okay, something's got to go. Mm-hmm. And I have to figure this out. My life has to be different, and I've got to figure out what is it that is driving me to that place where I'm always seeking external validation, where I no longer need that in my life for my own individual happiness. Mm-hmm. Who is Jared? And let's get back to that guy. Let's get back to what everyone else sees, who is a wonderful, loving, kind individual who has so much to give. And let's go after and just dial that in. And anyway,
you certainly didn't see that person.
I didn't see that person. No,
it was gone.
Yep. That person was gone. Yep. During my bender, my wife had filed for divorce. It was granted. At the end of my treatment, I had reached out to her to make amends. Mm-hmm. And that got us talking again. So we decided to go on a date. We went on a date, and let's just say she got pregnant that night.
All right.
And her other children, she has 4 other kids, and her family all super LDS. So to hide the fact that she got pregnant out of wedlock, we hurried and went to her bishop and got married. And we stayed married for another 4 years. and then divorced about 1.5 years ago. Everything happens for a reason, but I've got a beautiful 5-year-old son. Now I was the right person at the right time for her 4 other kids. Their dad was out in and out of jail, running and drug and doing his own thing at the time. And then a couple years into our marriage, he got sober. So now he's back in their lives, doing great, very happy. But when that happened, it completely changed the dynamic between me and the kids, and made the fact that my wife and I weren't actually in love, that we were married for the kids. It made that fact that much more glaring, and kind of took the fun out of the marriage. So we divorced. She's engaged and has a wonderful life going and is doing wonderful. Happy for her. And then I've been able to, all the different, trials that have happened. I had a little brother commit suicide 1.5 years ago.
Was he substance abuse or?
No, his was a little bit different. He had isolated himself from our whole family. No one had seen him in about 3.5 years. And I think what happened is he fell into his own depression, and then got on medication, felt like it wasn't working, doubled his medication, felt like it wasn't working. So then they switched his medication. He felt like it wasn't working. So then he doubled it on his own. And then went off of it cold turkey. Oof. And one of the side effects of this specific medication is suicidal ideation. Yep. Especially when you're getting on and when you're getting off. And I think he was at a place where he felt like he had no one to reach out to. And if anyone would have understood, it would have been me. But I think because he had isolated himself from our family, he felt like he couldn't reach out.
Yep.
So,
wow.
So going through and having that experience, I mean, last year, I lost my little brother. My grandmother passed away, which I wasn't actually sad about. She lived a long, wonderful life, and she was ready to go. My stepmom lost her battle with ovarian cancer. And then one of my very best friends, since middle school, lost his battle with alcohol. And it was a tough year. So go through a divorce, and then all of this incredible loss within like a 3-month time. And I was able to stay sober through all of that.
What do you account that to?
One, I know who I am today, and I like who I am today. So I had to do a lot of work and figure out, like I said, who is Jared, and then build on those attributes. And then I also attribute it to taking down my own walls of pride and the mask that I had put on for so long, and being willing to be vulnerable and reach out and let people be there for me in my time of need. And I'm grateful that I have a wonderful group of people and individuals, friends and family, who can be there and are willing to be there, but also that I'm allowing them to do that. That was a big thing for me, was allowing others to be there for me. I'm easily one of, out of all the people I know I'm usually one of the very first ones to be there for someone else. And, but allowing other people to be there for me was a huge struggle, and something I had to learn how to do.
So why do you think it's hard to receive? What was it for you?
I don't know that I actually know the answer to that question. I don't know that, I took so much pride in being the guy that everyone could go to.
Yep.
I had a nickname back in that party house when I came home from my mission.
Yep.
My nickname was Bishop. And it actually came from a movie where there was someone, his name in the movie was Bishop, and everybody went to him for advice.
Okay.
And one of my friends had called me that. Because we had just watched that movie, and I was like, that's funny. And he's telling everybody else in the house that, and like, oh, he is like Bishop. He's even like the Mormon bishop you go to and confess your sins to and calls you out on all your shit. He's that guy. And I took pride in that I was the guy that everybody could go to. And I guess I took it as a sign of weakness, that I could be the person that was seeking the help.
Yeah.
And it's not. It's a huge sign of strength that someone can reach out and ask for help. And I actually just watched a video where I don't remember who said it, but he said that you're denying me the opportunity to be there for you if you don't ask.
Right.
Like, how dare you? You're denying me those blessings.
Yep.
And I like being that guy. I like the way it makes me feel when I'm able to be there for someone else, but I'm not willing to give somebody else that opportunity to do the same.
Yeah.
So that's been a huge paradigm shift for me.
Yeah. I mean, I can see, gosh. And I think that the proof, right, is, see, you displayed a pattern of, ultimately your coping mechanism was alcohol, right? If you trouble in the marriage, go drink, right? Like it was just like this cycle. And then now you get sober. And I think one thing that was really impactful is you said that third time you were like, I need a change. I need to do something. I need to bring that old person back. That's that rock bottom moment. See, because the interesting thing is a lot of people say like, well, oh, you went to jail and this and that. It's like rock bottom, right? Well, everyone rock bottom is different. And you hit that moment where you're like, I've got to do something different. I need to make that change. And because for me, when I first contemplated the idea of getting sober, I was like, man, my life's going to be so boring. Like I'm just thinking about all the stupid things, right? When I hit that rock bottom moment, it was more about like, I don't care what my life will be like after. I need to do this. It's that dire of a situation. And you can tell that it's stuck because you've gone through so much trauma after the fact, right? And you've had that capability to get to that place where you can feel for yourself, feel those emotions, and not go to a coping mechanism that is destructive.
One of the other things that happened the last time was my family was out. They were done by this last one.
No enablement.
And they cut off contact.
Yeah.
I wasn't, welcome to just stop by and open the door and come on inside. And it took a lot of work to develop that trust back with my family.
Yeah.
And that was a big eye opener for me too, was, wait a second. What I'm doing is actually causing damage to my family. They're suffering. And I couldn't factor that in before it was, I'm the only one who's suffering.
Yeah.
And
it's a very selfish issue, right?
Yep.
Like it's a very selfish issue.
Yep.
Like you think you're only hurting yourself, but that's so not true.
Yep.
You're actually being super destructive to everyone.
Absolutely.
I think that the way I view, that question that I asked you about why you don't reach out, why I don't reach out, why we don't reach out. The conclusion that I've come to is that all of this insecurity and issues with self-worth, it's all based on how we feel about ourselves. And if we don't want to reach out, we actually in our conscious mind, even our subconscious mind believes we don't deserve it. We don't deserve it. And that's why we don't do it. And in my experience with ayahuasca, and you nailed this on the head, it showed me clearly that my relationship with my father, or lack thereof, wasn't my father's fault, because my father had a lack thereof with his father, and his father had a lack thereof with his father. And it's this constant, like, generational issue that just keeps flowing downhill, and it's nobody's fault.
Right.
But it's our job to stop it.
Yeah. Breaking that cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to stop it. That's the only way it will go away. Right. Because then I'll pass it to my son. As much as I don't want to, I will.
Yep.
If I don't stop. And to your point, I had my mom on the podcast, and she has 9 kids, and all of us have suffered really bad with it. For the most part, all of us have suffered, not everyone, but all of us have suffered with addiction. And she made a comment that was so interesting to me. She said, when you're deep in your addiction, you don't have the capability to have anything for anyone else. It's all for you. Mm-hmm. It is. It's all for you. And I know what you're saying about how when you're in it, you think you're only affecting yourself. Mm-hmm. You really do. It's like alcohol is a tricky little demon.
So this last weekend, I was in St. George. I rented an Airbnb, so I invited a bunch of friends to come down. And my buddy Parker came. He and I have been friends since middle school, and we're known each other since middle school. We're really close for several years. His mom, I actually call one of my other mothers, but we kind of lost contact and hadn't seen each other in several years until just a few months ago, and have reconnected. Anyway, he comes down, and I was actually telling, part of my story in the hot tub one night, and he started crying as he shared a little bit of his experience, what he went through that day when I posted that suicide note on Facebook.
Interesting.
And what it showed me was still 10 years later, it's still affecting the people that I love and care about deeply. It still affects them. Mm-hmm. And so there's still work for me to do, mm-hmm. As I, navigate sobriety, and, I've been sober now. December 1st will be 6 years.
Awesome.
But the work behind it isn't over. Because there's still pain there.
Yep.
And my work that I've done to repair, my relationships with my family, those are all in a really good place. But this was kind of an eye-opening for me to watch Parker and get emotional as he talked about what he went through that day. Cause it's still fresh for him, cause this is the first time that he and I have talked about it ever.
Yeah.
And I'm just coming to that realization kind of like now of, man, there's still a lot of other people that, were probably very affected by that I haven't been able to repair completely yet.
Yeah. That you're even unaware of.
Yeah.
When I got sober, I got really into like meditation and reading Deepak Chopra's books. And, I came across this concept of everything that we do causes this ripple, everything. And you don't understand how it is affecting people, that are so far removed from you, right? Like it wouldn't cross your mind that what you're doing to yourself is affecting those other people. However, the opposite of that is everything that you do causes a ripple.
Yeah.
So writing a book, sharing your story, being a better person, everything that you do for yourself even causes a ripple.
Yep.
And I'm sure that your friend Parker, seeing the way that you are now, it's also a healing, right? Like, AA talks about, making amends, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't disparage any program. I think if it works for you, great. AA was not a thing for me. But the one thing that I do take from it is that you don't always have to have a conversation about the thing that you hurt them with. The way I had a horrible relationship with my family because I was isolating so badly, right? When I was drinking. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, I'm not bothering them, right?
Right.
But I was hurting them. But when I got sober, I didn't tell anyone. I didn't go and announce it and be like, I'm sober now, this, that. I just changed.
Mm-hmm.
And for like with my relationship with my mom, it went from horrible, terrible to now we have the greatest relationship. And I'm telling you, we never had a conversation about the stuff that happened.
Interesting.
I changed.
Yep.
And she was like, yes, come, we're good.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so glad you're different now.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think I take that as it's the, the analogy with the airplane. If it's going down, the mask drops, put your mask on first, then you can help other people.
Yep.
If you make your healing the priority, it does affect everyone else. It's a vibration.
Yep.
It's a vibration that permeates and gets out there. And so for me, like trying to then go beyond just my family and do podcasts and this, that, I'm like so motivated to help someone that I don't even know, I guess. Right? Because that's my way of like changing that ripple that I caused, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and like you said with AA, I think all of these have their place, and it works for some people. I think, however it is that is able to get you, one, sober, and then two, start changing into the best version of you, then you should do that. Mm-hmm. I think the same thing about religion. Like, if there's a certain religion that helps you want to do better and be better, then go do that.
Right, yeah.
My aunt is Jewish. My mom's side of the family is Lutheran. My dad was raised in the Church of Christ. And I was raised, Mormon. And none of those really fit for me, but being out in nature is where I find God.
Yeah.
And so whatever it is that helps you want to do better and be better, go do that. AA served its purpose for a time for me, but I got to a place to where I was like, this is not really where I want to be. It was, I'm hearing some of these, old timers say, for me to pick up is for me to die. That the day I, drink is the day I die. I'm like, I don't want to live my life that way. I don't want to live my life in
I know.
fear.
Some of those guys like 25 years sober. You're like, what are you still doing here?
So, and so I stopped going to AA. I had left the LDS church, and was feeling lost. Like, where's my community? And that's actually the main reason that I joined We Are the They. Was I was talking to Jimmy, and was telling him this exact thing. He's like, this is why you need Watt. This is what We Are the They is for people like you. And anyway, I jumped in, and it's been incredible having 50 dudes that know that there are 49 other guys that will be there for them at the drop of a hat, no matter what, no questions asked. And hearing story after story of those events actually happening within, this group. People being able to break down those walls and take off the masks and just get real. Mm-hmm. And so that's been huge for me. So it's been a huge blessing in my life to have, this group. So whatever it is that, your listeners are thinking about, find your community. Mm-hmm. And if that is an AA, if that is an NA, if that is CA or any of the A's, or in a church group, there's lots of church groups that, offer addiction counseling. But, find your community, because that's been a godsend for me.
Yeah, man, what a story. That's incredible, man. I really appreciate you being so vulnerable. And like, I think that the power of this is that someone hears it that is struggling, right? And that isn't in a comfortable position to reach out to someone. Being able to hear your story and give them a little bit of hope is the whole design of this. And I really appreciate you coming on and sharing with us.
Thanks for inviting me. I really appreciate it. This has been great.
Absolutely, man. Thank you very much.